What's going on, YouTube? Welcome back. Today we have another episode. I got my boy Bands in the studio with me. We are going to be talking the mural today and much more. It's going to be fun. But before we get into the video, don't forget to drop a like, drop a subscribe here on the YouTube channel, and hit the notification bell so you can get notified for all the future uploads. And with that, let's get into the video. The mural, the infamous Harley Text. What's on your mind, man? What's on your mind, bro?
So I have a lot of thoughts. I have a huge theory about it. But overall, I feel like the best way we could tackle this, because Harley Text is a lot. I think we could just kind of go out about it, like just addressing who do we think is who, and the pictures primarily, and then we could just tackle the first world, second world, third world, because I think this all just ties together, Luffy. And then we could go about it from that.
All right, for sure. Man, I was telling you before we actually started up, this is perfect because, again, I'm going through my reread with Elbaf. So everything in here is so very interesting to me because when I first read it, it was a lot. And now that I've went through further in Elbaf, I'm starting to be able to put different pieces together that I think would fit. So I think it's going to be good. So yeah, first world, man. Do you want to start there, or where do you want to start with it?
So I think the best way is for a lot of people, I feel like the first world, second world, third world, I feel like it'll be easier to break it up if we just kind of break down the characters here.
Okay,
I feel like we should kind of clear out the obvious. I feel like addressing that the person who's near the sun, is obviously, it looks like, I don't want to say obvious because nothing is stated factually, but it looks like it's Luffy or Sun God or Joy Boy. And then I think, to me personally, that's Emif behind. I also believe that the person that's above Luffy is a Lunarian. And then
for sure.
And then probably below it, I see a Tantada. I definitely see a Shirihoshi. And then in front of those two, I definitely believe it's a giant. Just based off of the size. Yep.
Okay, I got it.
And then also
there's a lot of speculation about this guy too. I'm curious to see what you think about that.
So behind Shirihoshi, I know a lot of people are saying it. I'm kind of switching stances behind it. Because there's a lot of people who believe that this is Loki. They believe that's Loki. I also agree with it. I just feel like we just need more of a stamp for it in the coming chapters. Definitely resembles him, has the horns just like him, the hair is kind of like him, not to the T, but definitely like him. I definitely also believe that it's kind of like, I guess you could say, I don't want to say confirmation, but it's just kind of funny how Oda, within the last two chapters, that we see talks about, two sovereigns. And then we finally go back to the mural and we see Shirihoshi, and then potentially it's Loki that's right next to each other in the mural. So I don't know if that, can basically confirm it, but I think that's just a little funny thing that Oda, snuck in there. And then
I do want to ask this question before you go on, because I thought this was very interesting. I don't know if you've ever thought too deep into it. I know we're on the third world pictures right now.
Yeah.
But this giant that resembles Loki has those exact same markings on him as the serpent in the first world.
Yep.
I know I'm skipping around, but did you already peep that? Did you kind of already?
Okay. So that's the thing. So I believe that, how can I explain this? So if you go back to the first time that we talked about Dorian Broglie, or not even just that, when we first, interacted with them, it was a huge arc of just like, foreshadowing for the future for Usopp, right? Throughout those panels and those chapters, they kept on discussing along the lines of the Red Serpent. And I believe, I can't quote it for verbatim, but they were discussing in regards to knowing knowledge that the Red Serpent knows, and that the Red Serpent knows all, essentially. Um,
Okay.
regardless if you want to take that as metaphorically or actual literally, it's up to you. But for me personally, I believe the whole red serpent talk is more along the lines of discussion for the red line.
Mhm.
I believe that a lot of the words that are being used, especially in the text for the first, second, third world, a lot of people take them as literal. I take them as like metaphorically to describe, just other things in cases that it could resemble that or it could act like that. Specifically, like a big easy example is when we first, were getting understanding of the Lunarians. Like the text that like Marco and the other panels were saying was like they essentially treated them like gods. But
Right.
we know
Right.
obviously king is not a god,
Right.
but that's the language that they used to describe these like great beings, these deities, these people. And
Mhm.
so I feel like when you look at the same marks or the strain this the same line that's on the serpent on the far right, and then it's the same on Loki himself. I believe that just ties in all together to the red line, and then how Dorian Broggy discussed it, how other giants have discussed it, how the red line is you take it as you want it, but it's the great divider of the world, and
Mhm.
um and it's kind of funny how the red serpent is so talked about, but then also when you literally get to Elbath, you could literally see the mural. Like Oda placed this mural here perfectly for them because they know so much and their knowledge is so vast. It just
Right.
fits.
All the way to the left. Very interesting.
Yep.
This dragon slash demon with wings
Yep.
looks a lot like Shanks's ship, Red Force.
Yep.
What's your take on that? He's holding the sun. The sun is right under the demon. Granted, the horns on the Red Force are flipped the opposite way. I
Yep.
will say that, but it looks eerily similar. So I'm
Yep.
curious to hear what your take is on that.
So my take is, and I'm not gonna lie, ever since we had the discussion, I was thinking about it a lot. And I was
Hmm.
having a lot of just, I don't know if it's just stance switching or just I'm just, juggling around a lot of ideas. And I was thinking to myself as I was thinking about the mural, and conveniently enough, um, we don't really get much discussion as far as Shanks's like dream and Shanks's desires and Shanks's like intentions behind everything. We just know what he does and we see what he does, and that's it, and the result of it.
Hmm.
But we never really get the understanding behind why he's doing everything and what's making Shanks Shanks.
Right.
And I feel like Oda perfectly, whenever he has a character that's like Shanks or Luffy, there's reasons why there's pockets of space that is left in the timeline from when they were obviously a kid till now. And I feel like when we gain all this knowledge about him with the Holy Knights, him reuniting with his brother, his father, and then learning about the seals and learning about Emu, the great one. Um, I believe him gaining that knowledge, perhaps maybe, and Oda can completely prove me wrong. I believe that maybe by chance, um, when Shanks went out to sea, he could have previously had a ship, but then when he upgraded his ship, just like how we went from the Going Merry to the Sunny, maybe he wanted to add that design specifically for a reason.
Hmm.
And if he does go down that path where it actually is something that Shanks intentionally wanted on his ship, then we could go down the path of like, okay, with how knowledgeable Shanks is and how Oda specifically says in SBSs and stuff about how Shanks's knowledge is one of the most important things about him.
Right.
Maybe he knows, like we see it now with him knowing about the seals and Emu, but we also know for a fact that Shanks has been on Elbaf.
Right.
He's
Exactly. It's his last
he's
chapter.
been
Yeah.
with the Giants. He's been
Yep.
with all of them.
Yeah.
So for all we know, he's seen the mural and could have gained inspiration, or two, he could have known knowledge about what is that creature. And then
Right.
therefore going forward, when he created a new ship, he could have used Adam Wood and was like, okay, I want to put this design in the front forward. to me, my take on it is he has a lot of knowledge, and I don't think that's there for just no reason.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's just like a stamp.
I I like that. I like it a lot. I like you have been kind of bouncing back and forth on what my take was on this.
Yeah.
And so we know that potentially hasn't been confirmed why exactly he gave up that arm,
Yep.
but he could have given it up because that was the arm that had the mark on
Yep.
it, which would be some insane foreshadowing by
Yep.
Oda. Every time I think about that, it's just crazy.
Yep.
But regardless, we do think that I think that could have been the reason why he gave up the arm. But what do you think about potentially him beginning Domi reverse seat or something towards the end, and he actually has to fight against Luffy? But that would be interesting because it would be a situation, if that was possible, if that's how it plays out, it would be a situation to where Emu, like, you cannot get rid of Emu's grasp on you. Once
Yeah.
you get branded, you're branded. And this whole time, Shanks could have thought, well, I got rid of the arm, which had the mark, so I'm good. But do you think it's possible that he could get Domi reversed or controlled, like we just saw with Harold, and the mark is just in you? There's nothing that you can get. There's no way to get rid of it, and that could
Mm.
be potentially how this plays out.
Okay. Personally, to me, I think, and a lot of people might not notice this, but from the information that we've gathered now from these previous chapters, right? He went on to Elbaf to not only discuss with Gabon, but also to essentially warn Harold
Mhm.
before accepting the second seal. He wanted to give him that warning because it's one thing to have the first seal, but secondly, it's a seal that has a firm grasp of you, and no
Yeah.
matter what, you can't really disobey.
Right.
So that, in my way of thinking, is once you get to that moment, you yourself, unless there's some sort of caveat with it, you yourself can't do anything to break out of it. I think it has to be something that's, you know, exothermic or outside that has to break it in from along the lines of Emu by stopping the order, or
Mhm.
two, cutting off Emu from the seal to the person, and along those lines. But ultimately, with Shanks, just knowing that he came there to warn him, he knows about the seal, and then potentially him, in regards to potentially giving up his arm to get rid of the seal on the arm that is placed on, lets me know that one, he truly got rid of it because he gave it up. Two, as much as we see him, he's never really stationary. That's the one thing
Yeah,
that I give Shanks, is he's never really
that's
stationary.
true.
You can't really. I know a lot of people like to say like, "Hey, Shanks's territory or his homeland or like his landing ground is Elbaf," but he's always moving,
Mhm.
always continuously moving, and it could
Mhm.
be a sense of fear. It could be a sense of like, okay, I just want to be responsible and acknowledge that, hey, at any moment if I get to this place, I could get Domi reversing. But this is the funniest thing here that I wanted to talk about,
Okay.
specifically with your question. So we see that Rocks got Domi reversed, and we see that he got Domi reversed on his homeland. And then
Mhm.
we followed up and we see Harold, and we see Harold get Domi reversed. Now, the
Mhm.
funny thing is that the two things that they both have in common are they're alike, and then two, they got Domi reversed in the land that they love and that they care for, and they both wanted to protect it.
Yep.
So the funny thing is where does Shanks ultimately claim? What is the land that he claims? And the only hint that we get some sort of way about it is when he's on the ship before he clashes with Whitebeard. He gives him
Mhm.
sake. And before he gives him the sake and he drinks it, he says, "Hey, I got this sake from my hometown."
Mhm.
And then we follow up with Whitebeard calling it cheap. They're laughing, etc., etc.
Right.
So if we do get along those lines of like, hey, he gets Domi reversed, not saying it's impossible because I think anybody could get Domi reversed.
Right.
Would it be a situation where you're like, hey, he comes back, Makana is there, or Makima is there with their kid, Luffy comes back, they're all back at that place. Can he get Dome University there? Or does he necessarily have to be at God Valley? Did he get truly birthed there?
That's a good question. That's a great question.
Because what is home essentially for him?
That's a good point. I don't think he. I don't know. I'm curious if God Valley would be his home
Yep.
necessarily. I don't know. But if it's not, because obviously it doesn't exist anymore, then yeah, in theory, it'd be kind of tough because you're right. He goes around a lot.
Yep.
Hmm. I don't know. I mean, I do wonder. See, but this is where my mind goes
Yeah.
because I'm so interested because my own like personal side theory
Mm-hmm.
is that there's something special about the Fagarlands
Yep.
anyway with this whole thing with Emu. So I do think their connection to Emu works a little bit differently.
Yep.
That's just my side theory. It could just be headcanon. But if that is the case, then yeah, potentially it could probably happen. That could be the caveat.
Yep.
Like, because you're a for Garland, we're able to
Yep.
do this. That's my own side theory. It could just be headcanon. But yeah, if it doesn't work that way, then that would probably rule this out. If we'd have to go straight home village, which God Valley does not exist anymore. So
Yep. And that's
good
and that's
point.
the funny thing, because as much as I could say that about Shanks, I could essentially say the same thing about Blackbeard, because
Mm-hmm.
we don't truly know his home. You could say Drum Island, you could say God Valley, you could
Mm-hmm.
say etc., but we don't truly for sure know where their home is. And so that's the
Mm-hmm.
biggest thing, is like, if we don't truly know that, and let's say along the lines is like it's case closed, cemented, that you can only get Domi University in the place that you're birthed, or that's your hometown, that's where you claim, then those two along the lines are, I wouldn't say immune, but they kind of have a caveat to fight the Dome University, because they can never be placed in somewhere where they're not claiming home.
Mm-hmm.
And then the funny thing is about that is that those two that don't have that, they also share essentially kind of the same birth, and then the childhood, and etc., because they lost two of the same people that they loved the most. Shanks essentially lost his father, and we get clarification of that because Gabon literally said that they're essentially their sons,
Yep.
and then he claimed Ace as his brother. So
Yep.
Roger's his father figure, and then
Yep.
Blackbeard obviously has rocks. So it just
Yes.
shows more of a, you know, uh, uh, like a parallel between the two. So it's just
Yeah.
funny how it's him, Blackbeard, and then and Luffy are like the three biggest threats.
I do wonder if it would be a little bit different when Emu was actually there as Emu instead of like
Mm,
the Gunko Moo or like coming over and taking over Saturn.
yeah.
When Emu steps down from the throne and is themself in front of you,
Mm-hmm.
that might be, to answer your question, if there are caveats, that might be where you get that caveat to where I can do anything when I'm out here in front of you myself as my actual body.
Yep.
I'm curious. Although that does make me wonder why it wasn't done to Sabo
Yep.
when he was in her presence or his presence.
Yep.
That would make me question that. But if Oda can explain that away, then I could believe that, yeah, if he moves actually there, then yeah, Emu could take you over. That would make sense to me.
And see, that's the funny thing. I don't think Emu can move.
Oh, wow, okay.
I don't
So
think
you
Emu
don't
can
think Emu
move.
can leave the Holy Land? That's what you're saying.
No, I don't think so. And
Mm,
I think we kind of get more of a clarification about it. Because I know a lot of people, when Oda at the Jump Fiesta gave a drawing of, Mary Joie, and then we see, the Red Desert, we see the Celestial Land, we see the actual Mary Joie, like the Reverie and all of that.
mhm.
I think that there's a reason why emu, regardless if it's a he or she, they are just always in a throne room and then always in a garden room. And then that also ties along the same lines as my theory, and we could discuss that more later. But I believe like heavily that there's a reason why Gunko is there. There's a reason why Saturn is there. There's a reason why they get dispersed to all these lands, and then there's essentially seals on these places where they get teleport, and they can't just teleport anywhere. There has to
Hmm.
be some sort of caveat, some sort of reason, some sort of acknowledgement of like, okay, hey, this is a point, and then I could get from this point to this point. And
Yeah.
I think that binds emu essentially. And I think that's also a reason why a lot of things get slowed down in the process of essentially turning the world upside down for emu.
Hmm.
And I think that's one of the things that Oda will probably discuss later. Um, and I think even regardless if that emu cannot move or leave Mary Joie, that doesn't mean that this whole final war can't be brought to emu themselves.
Right. Right. Right.
Yeah.
No, and I honestly, I think that is where it will be.
Yep.
Honestly, that's my take. A lot of people have said that they don't think so. They think it's going to be this place, that place. I do think it is there. So no, that's valid. That's interesting. I've never heard anyone say that part about Emu not being able to leave the Holy Land. Interesting. Okay. Hmm.
I think it makes, for me it makes a lot of sense because narratively the way I go about it is if I were Oda and I had to place a ultimate villain, right? And that ultimate villain has a mother flame. We've seen the
Mm-hmm.
destruction that they could do with Lulusia. We also
Yep.
see that whenever they disperse the five elders or the holy knights, that they essentially, what we've seen in God Valley and what we've seen in Elbath, that Emu then just controls that person as a vessel and then
Mm-hmm.
appears at that location, but Emu is not physically there.
Right.
They are still at Mary Joie, regardless if it's in the garden or if it's in the throne room. And then we see from the fights that regardless if it's Saturn taking the damage, if Emu's taking over, or if it's Emu themselves taking damage, not saying we've seen it other than Joy Boys hockey, all that type of stuff would also explain why they're not taking any damage outside of the regeneration, because the regeneration is inevitable. We can understand that, hey, you took this damage, you didn't regenerate. But the thing
Mm-hmm.
that makes the most clear sense for me is that when you see Saturn or any of the five elders get attacked, you could see physically pain, you could see the actual cut, you could see the actual damage.
Yeah.
Same thing that happened to Garland. But the one time that they all teamed up and Rocks attacked Emu, it just split and cut and then came back together. There was
Mm-hmm.
no damage, there was no emotion, there was no facial expression from Emu. It just went back. And I think that's outside of just regeneration. It's almost as if, like, the best way I can explain it is like there's regeneration from when you get hurt, and then that part of the body heals itself and it regenerates. But then
Mm-hmm.
there's the other aspect of like if you try to cut with a sword a ghost in half, the ghost will just reconnect, but that's not regeneration. That's
Right.
how I essentially view Emu. That, since they are using like essentially Bluetooth abilities, that they're
Mm-hmm.
not really there to take the actual impact. So that's how I feel like when I view that and view them as an ultimate character is like, okay, there has to be a reason why Emu just doesn't appear at all these places. Because ultimately, if I
Interesting.
was Emu, the moment that I felt Joy Boys hockey at Egghead, I would have just
Mm-hmm.
appeared. I would have just went there. The moment I felt EMF release all that, I would have went there personally myself. So if I placed myself in Emu's shoes, I, one, felt Joy Boys hockey. Two, I know for a fact that now someone has possession of the Nika Nika fruit. In my best abilities, I would go do it myself to go eradicate that person. But instead, they
Mm-hmm.
go send out people and then they connect to her or them, like essentially like a vessel. That to me tells me they can't move, they can't leave, they have to stay stationary.
Interesting. That's very interesting. Okay. I'm gonna have to think about that. That's I like that. I make it. It actually makes a lot of sense.
Yep.
Oof. Okay, well here I'll segue because I know we were getting into the different pieces of it. You can.
Yep.
I know you were talking about Shirahoshi and the Tontadas. If you want to continue, you can go
Oh
on.
yeah, so we
You
can
guys
continue.
review.
So I believe that we have the Ming tribe that's above Emeth, and the robot right
Okay.
there. I believe that's
Yeah.
Emeth. And then
Yes.
this is the biggest discussion that I hear a lot. I know people want to say for certainty, they want to say that's Laboon. I know
Okay.
they want to say it.
Yes.
The
I thought that
reason
was Laboon.
the reason why I'm so iffy with that is that significantly from panels that we see, you could have a greater argument that that is the same well tree from Zoe. Now, I get
Mm.
it. I understand. I have to be able to explain, okay, if that is the same well, why is the well a tree now? Why did it
Mm-hmm.
fortify into a tree? Maybe previously someone did that to that well. Maybe previously a whale that essentially came from the same pack of wells as that same tree that was that same well that is a tree in Zoe could be it, but I don't think it's Laboon at all. I personally don't think it's Laboon.
Wow. Okay.
I think Laboon ties into more with help with the Sea Kings and then also to connect Laboon back to Brook. I don't think Laboon is there to essentially help with the final war. I think Laboon's purpose ultimately is for the Red Line. Because we have to remember the final war, right, is not going to
Yeah.
be the end all be all for the Red Line right there. We have to,
Right.
one, fix the flooding, and then
Yep.
two, we have to fix the Red Line. And
Right.
three, I know for a fact Laboon is definitely going to be the biggest help there.
Makes sense.
So that's why I'm
Interesting.
iffy with it. I think Laboon serves a greater purpose along the lines of the Red Line than the final war.
I mean, that makes sense. Okay. Hmm. I could. Okay. I forgot there's a well. Okay. You know that's okay. Yeah, I'm gonna let you cook, man. You can keep on going. Keep going.
And
This is good.
then
This is good.
if we explain to the right side now, going towards the first world,
Mm-hmm.
um, I believe that's Sunisha. I also believe that is obviously Noah's Ark. And then I also believe that the person that's next to Noah's Ark is a Skypean because the wings.
Okay.
Maybe we could learn some more history about that. And then along those lines, those people who are going up that I guess you say that machinery system where they're getting lifted up and down. I believe
Yes.
those are slaves. And I believe what they're carrying is essentially their version of being able to move and transfer the mother flame as far as an energy source for the things that they're trying to build. Because if you look at it, the thing that doesn't make a lot of sense, right? If I were to look at the left side of the whole mural, and then I were to go to look at the right side of the mural, the biggest difference is between the two is that one, the buildings and the fact that they're blowing smoke and the machinery and the gears show me that that is more advanced technology than the left
Mm-hmm.
side. Because the left side, we're seeing boats, we're seeing swords, we're seeing paddles. And then on the right side, we see that this energy, this resource is being used to build this machinery, these buildings and everything.
Yeah.
And what we did learn from Vegapunk is that it's actually flip-flop, that the past is more advanced than the future.
Right. Right.
And so I believe that when this mural came out, this also signifies the advancement that they were at that time period for the time period that they were at. And so I believe that all those things came about due to slavery and then the usage of the mother flame. And I think ultimately that when we built everything in that time period, that the mother flame got so used up, I think that also led to the reasoning why Emu and the five elders in the world government wanted Vegabunk to create an artificial mother flame to
Mm.
be able to create more resources. And
That
then
makes
this
sense.
also ties into if you look underneath the moon, for example, underneath the fire that's being dispersed by the mouths of the serpent and the other being,
Mm-hmm.
That ship right there, I also believe, is a ship that comes from the moon. I think
Yes.
that also ties in from Anel and his backstory through the cover stories.
Yep.
And from what we know about the people who were on the moon, they only came down to Earth because they themselves lacked resources. They used all their resources. So they had to come down. They had to find an alternative source. And I believe that's also kind of coincidentally funny how the group of people who are lacking resources in the actual picture is coming down, and they're coming down on the side of where we're seeing resources being dispersed by slavery to create these things and being
Mm-hmm.
used as a fuel source. So it kind of signifies like, hey, we need some of that, and that they're coming down from the moon themselves. And
That's
then
valid.
on top of that, I believe personally that the person that is sitting on the nose of Zunisha is Emu. I
Mm-hmm.
personally believe that. I know a lot of
Okay.
people are kind of flip flop. They think that Emu is the being on the far left that we're talking about, Shanks holding the
Yeah.
sun. I know a lot of people think that. I believe that's Emu. Ultimately, because for me, in my train of thought, we know that the 20 ancient kingdoms from back then eliminated Joy Boy.
Right.
So that kingdom that Joy Boy was representing, everything got overwhelmed and taken. And so all those beings that you know that are tied to Joy Boy had to be either taken in or they had to be under control from another person. And I believe at that time it had to be Emu. That's why I believe Emeth was there under the sea. I mean, in Egghead Island, I believe he was taken there by the world government. And
Mm-hmm.
I believe Vegapunk, for some sort of reason, they trusted him enough where he was able to have possession of it, and they just disregarded it to him, and he was actually able to, preserve it. And then I also believe that Emu was also able to take and enslave essentially Zunisha. And I believe that's why Zunisha said that, she had to essentially do a whole jail sentence for like, centuries and stuff like that, waiting for the next Joy
Right.
Boy. So I think that's a clear understanding of that. And so now we come down to the middle. And this is the
Yes.
biggest thing.
Yes. Okay.
I know a lot of people are saying it's the Adam tree.
Mm-hmm.
I know a lot of people are saying it's, Elbath is this tree signifies that this is all happening on Elbath, etc., etc. So this is where I kind of start to strive away from the people that think that. I believe personally that there is a reason why Luffy himself has to be the person that destroys Fishman Island.
Okay. Talk about it.
I don't think him destroying Fishman Island is essentially him coming down with his crew and just punching a bunch of things with hockey and then destroying everything. I believe the destruction of Fishman Island is a result of the destruction of the final war, and then at last destroys Fishman Island. And the reason why I believe that is because there's a huge difference between the Adam tree and the Eve tree. I
Okay.
believe the tree that is, placed here is the tree that's directly going through above from Fishman Island through the water and landing above. I
Yeah.
also believe that the final war will be there because it essentially groups everything perfectly together for a battlefield. I know a lot of people are saying Elbath, but these certain locations, I personally don't feel is as fitting because one, you have to be able to get everybody there and assemble them.
Right.
Two, you also have to be able to essentially bring all these groups of people there willingly for the final war. And then three, I also believe it's on Fishman Island because I believe that fully encaps a perfect death of Emu, and then also a perfect ending of the world from potentially being flooded, and then also freeing essentially every group that's being discriminated, brought through slavery, and we're still dealing with that now. I feel like it just fully encaps everything perfectly. And also the biggest reason why too is I believe if the war is at Fishman Island and everything happens how I think about it, I also think that by doing that and also by breaking the red line, the flooding will stop for sure. I think that definitely helps in that case. And I think when the flooding ends for sure and the water rate and the water level, drops below, then we can start to see pieces of land that are more significant for essentially like a Joy Boy flashback.
Right.
And
Right.
so that's what I believe. And then also, if we start discussing the actual text from first, second, and third world,
Yeah.
I can explain more about the theory.
No,
Um,
for sure. I want to ask too, because I know we're about
yeah.
to get into that. Woo. Okay. Man, that was a lot. So Matt, okay, so points I got. Madam Shirley was right. We're gonna revisit what Madam Shirley told us about Luffy coming back.
Yep.
And he said he's gonna go down there and he will essentially destroy it, but of course on purpose,
Yep.
because that's necessary to complete the whole process of what's gonna happen in the final war.
Yep.
You
I'm
said
trying
Emu.
to I'm trying to find the panel right now. Sorry. Go ahead.
No, you're good. You're good. So I'm just recapping because I'm trying to keep up with everything.
hmm
Uh, also, Emu will essentially be down. He's gonna defeat Emu in Fishman Island. Is that what you
Yeah.
said?
So okay. For me to better explain it, let me explain it geographically. So for the
Okay.
people who are watching who don't know,
Okay.
um,
There you go.
Fishman Island essentially itself, regardless if it's in a body of water or not, Fishman Island is directly below Mary Joie.
Mm,
So by default, if I were to per se go up to Marie Joie, destroy all of that, everything has to, essentially follow the laws of gravity. Everything has to go down. Everything has to fall. So by it falling, that initial beginning of the final war has to break and then go down to Fishman Island to continue
mm.
the final part of the final war. And I
Okay.
think by that happening, that's when we see the quote unquote destruction of Luffy destroying Fishman Island. And so I think
Mm,
that fits perfectly too, because I believe there's a reason why Marie Joie is um, above Fishman Island, because my theory is that the I believe is the Eve tree.
yeah.
That
Feature.
is the Eve tree. I believe that the Eve tree vertically goes all the way up from Fishman Island to Marie Joie. And I think regardless of what it is, the fact that it's called Eve is the most interesting thing to me. And the reason why is this: my theory is that when we get a lot of similarities between Elbaf that's going on with Norse mythology, we get a lot of things with Egyptian like mythology, etc., etc. I believe now we start to tie into in the final war, we start to fall into along the lines of like Christianity, that type of mythology,
Hmm.
that thought process. And I
Yeah.
believe it's funny that the Eve tree is there because when God planted the tree of knowledge, who was the person that ate the fruit?
Yeah. Eve. Right.
So Eve. So I
Yeah.
believe that tree signifies that that person who's sitting at the very top, essentially Emu, is perfectly placed there for everything to fall along the lines of that being destroyed, that going down to Fishman Island. Not only that, the Eve tree could definitely personify or be a metaphor essentially for Emu, because Emu, regardless if Emu has a devil fruit or not, I don't believe so. I believe that is definitely a good representation of Emu, just as a person,
Right.
regardless if it's a boy or a girl. I think it's perfect representation. And then two, the funniest thing about the whole thing is that we see Emu only in two rooms. We only see Emu within the throne room and the garden room. And for
Hmm.
some odd chance, the garden room, right, is literally encompassed with nothing but vegetation,
Hmm.
encompassed with nothing but trees, nothing but grass, nothing but plants, etc., etc. And I believe that is essentially encompassing that one, that land of Mary Joie if you look at it from the picture of the drawing of Marie Joie with the red desert and the garden room and the celestial land, that
Yeah.
looks like to me a land that was taken over. And it looks like that base that was put there, regardless if it was an ancient kingdom or not, was definitely something that wasn't placed there before for Emu. I believe me, Emu definitely took that over. So I think also by breaking that, that also signifies for me that hey, like these ancient kingdoms that overrided Joy Boy, those are coming to fall down too. All of those are going down with it, and I believe
Yeah.
that also is perfect too, because if you break Marie Joie, you also destroy the number one most hated thing in the world for all fishermen, which is what? Celestial dragons. And
Right.
what do we know from the drawing of Oda? Celestial land. That's where all the celestial dragons reside. So that would fit perfectly not only for Luffy, but that would fit perfect for Fisher Tiger. That would fit perfect for Dragon. That would fit perfect for Boa. That would fit perfect for everybody. So you're hitting two birds with one stone. You essentially destroy Emu. Emu and Marijois falls, so celestial dragons get destroyed. There's no base for them. There's no nothing. Marijois gets destroyed, so there's no base for her or for Emu.
Mm.
And then on top of that, that leads to now the prophecy of Fishman Island being the ultimate final war location, and then you lead to destruction of that as well. And then you just, by coincidence, you have the whole Eve tree that's in the middle of everything, and it
Hmm.
lines up perfectly between the levels of at the bottom we have Fishman Island and at the top we have Marie Joie. You destroy all three, you get rid of all the biggest problems in the world.
Mm.
And then on top of that, that also is perfect for how we get Noah's Ark.
Okay. Okay. Mm. I need to go back and look at it. I don't know when the last time you looked at the prediction when Madam Shirley had said it.
Yeah.
I do remember there was a bunch of fire everywhere.
Yep.
It's been a while since I watched Fishman Island, but it's almost. I need to go back and watch it because you're cooking. You're
Yeah.
absolutely cooking. I'm sitting there thinking, like, man, you're right. I just wonder. I'm gonna go back and look at it because if I remember right, he was just walking through right in her prediction
Yep.
with fire everywhere around him,
Yep.
and she just assumed that he was the one that burnt it down. And
Yep.
ooh, okay, okay, I like that. Okay, all right, we can keep going. I like that.
So now this is the other part
Oh,
that
actually, hold on, wait. Before
Mhm.
actually, no, let me ask this because this is another thing that a lot of people asked about.
Yeah.
Frankie, is Frankie a part of the mural? Let's just go ahead and ask it.
Oh
Frankie's
yeah,
here.
hundred
A lot
percent.
of people say he's actually just a part of the mural. What's your
He's
thoughts on that?
he's 100% a part of it. So this is why. So when Joy Boy was roaming the earth, it took all 20 ancient kingdoms to essentially kill him, right?
Hmm.
I personally believe, and I think we kind of get more of a clarification from it from Clover. That's why I'm a big Clover fan. I believe that the ancient kingdom that Joy Boy resided from, if you want to say they created it or not, regardless, I think they used those ancient weapons as an act of protection for the world. And I believe those ancient weapons resided within the ancient kingdom. And then they obviously
Hmm.
got dispersed later when everything got destroyed.
Right.
And I believe that when Oda drops these little, crumbs with him picking up the blueprints for Pluton and, all this, I believe that the future going forward for Frankie is him becoming ultimately a ship. I believe that he will become the blueprints himself. And I believe it's also very perfect for him because, quite frankly, no pun intended, um, I believe that there's no such thing as like, hey, we're going to give Frankie hockey now. I don't think that's the case. I don't think we're this late into the world where we're going to give him hockey, arming and hockey, et cetera, big power ups.
I
I
agree.
believe that ultimately it was destined for him to do this ever since we get the same talks from Tom and Frankie in Water 7. And I also believe that it's perfect for him because now we get more understanding um, that he himself, throughout all these arcs, has essentially been adding upgrades to his body himself. And
Hmm.
some can argue that the Sunny is essentially connected to Frankie. You could
Right.
argue that for most cases. And
Yeah.
then on top of that, if he does become the blueprints, I think that would be perfect because we're in Elbath right now. And if he sees all of that, he sees the mural, understands the mural, and then recollects the blueprints of Pluton, then I think we could now progress through the story where we could now understand the roles for each member of the Straw Hats. And I think that's important because I know a lot of people want to have this power scaling mindset, but quite frankly, not trying to be the bearer of bad news, everyone is not going to get an upgrade in regards to hockey.
Right.
That's just
I
not the
agree
case.
with that. I agree with that.
And I think everybody has to play a role into the final war. And I think ultimately Frankie will be the new Pluton. He will be
Hmm.
essentially an ancient weapon. He will essentially be the one that brings the Straw Hats there. And I think that's perfect because
Interesting.
also he is essentially, if he becomes Pluton, you don't need to worry about anything when it comes to the ship. You don't have to worry about any type of maintenance. You don't have to worry about any of that stuff. Frankie is the ship. He's the one within it. So you're fine now at that point. I think that I think that now eliminates the idea of like, hey, like I know we're ready, but is the Sunny ready? And I know a
Hmm.
lot of people are probably not thinking that, but I think the ship that Luffy ultimately ends up on with the Straw Hats is very important. I think it's very important to the story. I think Frankie definitely like fixes all that.
Let me ask a question. That's very interesting. Because that's the first time I've heard that. I like it.
Hmm.
I got a lot to think about. Let me ask you this, because I know from what I've seen, the general consensus is that Frankie is this generation's Emmett,
Hmm.
and that the Sunny that he built is already Pluton. He just built it from the the plans of Pluton. He just memorized it and built it.
Hmm.
You're not subscribing to that at all. You're saying that he's gonna be coming, right?
One of the biggest reasons why also, and is because Oda, when he drew the caricatures of what each Straw Hat will look like years to come, the
Mm-hmm.
only person that we see is when he draws Frankie at the age of 40 and 50, he is literally a ship. Everybody else,
Mm.
Luffy, he drew Luffy from ages of 40 and 50 as good and bad, and we just see him aged and look more like Roger.
Mm-hmm.
Zoro just has slick back hair, wrinkles, etc., etc. Frankie, on the other hand, he's literally a ship, an exact
Mm.
ship. It's not like, hey, like, he gets older, he replaces more parts. You can see like metal, his hair is metal. No, he's
Mm-hmm.
literally a ship when he's drawn for what he looks like when he's older.
Interesting. I remember that SBS.
Yep.
I didn't think anything of it.
Yep.
Huh. Okay. Nah, you're cooking. Okay. All right. Well,
Yeah.
let's keep going. Let's keep going.
So
Uh,
now this is where I wanted to go deep in the
okay.
psychology of One Piece.
All right. Let's go.
So first world, second world, third world. For all the people who are reading, if you can see the text, I'll try to highlight what I believe from the text themselves as you can read it.
Okay.
So I believe that the points that we see when it comes to flames engulf the land and humans succumb to their desires, right? I believe that is what Vegapunk was talking essentially when it came to the manifestation of devil fruits.
Okay.
So from what we know from Vegapunk is that he said that the devil fruits came about, but he doesn't know the direct line of how it came about. Because it's one thing to
Mhm.
know where it come from, and then the other thing is how did that happen in creation? And so when we get those manifestations that lead to devil fruits being created, we know that the manifestations came from the people. And at
Right.
those times in the first world, a lot of the people, that had these big manifestations and dreams were people of slavery. And we get the direct line of how it comes from generations and generations, as we can see from Kuma and Bonnie and everybody. It's this old wise tale, this old folk tale about sun god Nika, the man of liberation, the man that comes and liberate everyone. That itself is a dream. That itself is a manifestation, and that's what it came about. And
Mhm.
that direct dream, that direct manifestation is generational. Everybody who succumbed to, being slave, being non-free, non-liberated, living binded and constricted, everybody wished essentially for freedom. And so when it says flames engulf the land and humans succumb to their desires, I believe that's essentially him, essentially the knowledge that we gain from Vegapunk about people having desires and manifestations. And then it says touching the forbidden sun. Now, the forbidden sun for me is more of an explanation about the sun and then mother flames being
Yeah,
as in
yep.
one.
Yep.
So now this is the part right here. The enslaved prayed, and the sun god appeared. The earth god was enraged. From that part on, right? It says previously, humans succumbed to their desires. That means they fell and they went straight to their own desires. And then it also clarifies it even more. The enslaved, the slaves, they all prayed. When that all happened, I believe that the sun and the mother flame is the actual source to the creation of devil fruits. I believe it's one hand, it's dreams and manifestations,
Hmm.
and then two, the mother flames are used in combination to actually create physically a devil fruit. Because it's one thing that we got clarified about how the dreams and the manifestation creates the powers of the devil fruit. Remember that when we get a devil fruit, the power itself is what the manifestation and the desire is, not the devil fruit itself. It's just the power.
Yeah.
So, one hand, those desires is to create the power. The devil fruit itself to be created is the mother flame. That is the power of the mother flame and the sun. Now, if you remember, just stay along with me on this. The
Okay.
sun god appeared and the earth god was enraged, and together with the serpent of infernal flames shrouded the world in death and darkness, and they would never meet again. Right? So I believe in that text right there is explaining sun god, regardless if you want to say it's Joy Boy, Nika, Luffy, whatever, they're all similar. I believe that Nika was created essentially from the sun and the people who had desires of freedom and wanting to actually physically touch the sun.
Mm.
Remember, those slaves touched the forbidden sun. And when they touched it, they also had the acknowledgement of their own dreams. So I think that's discussing the creation of sun god Nika. I think that's where the manifestation and the whole origin is. And then the earth god, essentially, to me, if you remember what I said previously, not everything is literal when it comes to text.
Right.
Anybody at that stature or status can be claimed as a god.
Right.
I personally believe that the earth god, right, to me is resembling Emu. And then we'll go further along. In the
Okay.
second world, breath stirred with the void, and the forest god sent forth demons. The sun god, the sun did nothing but spread the fires of war. Um, Now in this text right here, um, this is explaining. In my part, I said the earth god was Emu. I actually mean the forest god is Emu. That's
The
my
force
fault.
god.
The
Okay. Okay.
forest god. In this text, it says the forest god sent forth demons. Regardless of how you want to take it, I believe those demons are basically the people that Emu has captive.
Okay.
There's a reason why Emu is able to create seals. There's a reason why Emu is essentially able to create and take away life. I also believe there's a reason why, Emu can create regeneration and immortality. I believe those demons were sent from Emu. And then it says the earth did nothing but spread the fires of war. I believe that the sun itself, when it muted the mother flames, that is essentially what's explaining the fire of wars. I believe people all fought for the mother flames. They all fought for it at those ancient times because it was just a significant resource. It was a significant fuel.
Yeah.
And then going down forward, the people of the half moon dream, the people of the full moon dream. Humans slew the sun and became gods, and the sea god raged, and they would never meet again. Take this how you want to take this. When we first see a picture of Blackbeard as a kid, we see him
Mhm.
cuddled up on Drum Island, and on the top left, you see a half moon. You see a
Yeah.
crescent moon. To me, I think personally that this explains the will of the D. I think this explains the meaning of D.
Okay. Okay.
I'm not going to, I don't know for sure yet what
Interesting.
D means for sure, but I think when you split a moon in half and you see one half of it, I believe that's the D that is in people's names. And I also believe
Okay.
the
I
reason
guess.
why
Yeah.
that is the case is because those who are, members of D are essentially all marked and they're all hunted for. We
Mm-hmm.
got Saul, we got Clover, we got Law, we got a lot of people. And essentially they're all either a pirate, hunted, killed, etc., etc. Look at Nico Robin. She's basically one of the most sought out people in the whole world for the world government. That's Emu just essentially trying to eradicate more from the Void Century.
It's
So I
true.
believe that those of the Half Moon are from the D clan because what we know is, like I brought up in the picture, there's a half moon essentially or a crescent moon in Blackbeard's first ever uh, picture of him as a children. And we
Yeah.
all know Blackbeard is a member of the D clan.
Yep.
And so that I believe is essentially that. And then the people of the full moon dream humans slew the sun and became gods, and the sea god raged, and they would never meet again. I believe that as far as a lot of things, I'll try to narrow it down more. But I believe that's one that could explain why people who have devil fruits can't go into sea. I believe that's the reason why.
Okay.
And then two, I also believe that it's some sort of, how can I guess, a curse by Mother Nature. I believe that along the lines of why people can't go into the sea as a devil fruit user is also the embodiment of a curse that's pledged upon all who uses the devil fruit powers and going forth in the future. I believe that's the
Okay.
reason why. And then on top of that, if we go into the third world, in chaos there is a void, the trouble shadowed. Remembers the promised day and hears the voice of the fractured moon. The sun god dances and laughs, leading to the world to its end. The sun will return once more and a new dawn will arrive. Surely this time they will meet again. This right here is the passage that I've been jumping back and forth so much because I have so many different understandings of it. But this
Okay.
is my take. So the fractured moon and the sun god dances and laughs, leading the world to its end. I believe that that's talking about essentially Luffy at the end when everything is resolved, he will dance and laugh.
Mm-hmm.
And then I also believe that the world coming to its end is essentially the world being together, unison all again. Everything is coming to an end. There's no more destruction. There's no more, path of chaos, etc., etc. And then it said the sun will return once more and a new dawn will arrive. I believe that's talking about how Emu essentially has been abusing the power of the mother flames, relying on Vegapunk to create an artificial mother flame, and that the sun itself, the embodiment of it, is no longer here because it's being so abused and so used that once everything comes to an end and everything comes back to peace, the sun will rise again, and then the mother flames will also be now dispersed amongst everybody, and then we could create that advancement of technology, living, etc. Everybody could be at peace. And that's why it says a new dawn will arrive. To me, a new dawn means a new life, a new
Right.
future, a
Right.
new everything. And then it says, surely this time they will meet again. I believe that's saying in conjunction to the sun god and the voices of the fractured moon. I believe that the fractured moon is representing groups of people. I
Okay.
believe that's representing, members of D. It could be anybody in the world government like Emu. It could be Davy. It could be all those type of people. I believe that's what represents the fractured moon. Because remember, you're hearing the voice of the fractured moon. That means a voice, something living.
Right.
So that's what I believe the moon is the actual embodiment of a group of people. And then it says before that, in chaos, there is a void. The trouble shadowed remembers the promised day. I believe that is talking about specifically in chaos, there is void, period. I believe that is ultimately Blackbeard or Emu trying to turn the world upside down, creating a void, creating a shadow. Because what we know is when the moon eclipses, when the moon goes over the sun and etc., it creates essentially a shadow of darkness over it because there's no more
Mm-hmm.
sunlight being brought onto Earth. So I believe that's the case. But I've been
Mm.
stirring back and forth with it because now that I'm getting more understanding about Blackbeard, I also now am thinking of a theory about when Blackbeard says he wants to turn the world upside down. I believe what he's talking about actually goes along perfect with the third world because I think ultimately he's going to use the darkness fruit to absorb completely the mother flame to the
Yeah.
point where the sun will now be dead. So if he absorbs the mother flame, there's no more light, there is void, there is chaos. Nothing is
Mm-hmm.
there, nothing can be powered. Everything is destroyed. And
Hmm.
the reason why I think everything else is destroyed is because how perfect is it that when we go to Jaya, we see Blackbeard and we see Luffy talk and they talk about dreams. And I think that's perfect because, as I explained to you earlier in the first world, I believe that once a human has a dream, has a will, has a manifestation, it then comes in conjunction to the mother flame creating the devil fruit. So it creates a power.
Mm-hmm.
So if I were to, be Blackbeard and I take power of the mother flame, I absorb it. I absorb essentially the lightness that, controls the world and I take over the sun. I essentially can turn the world upside down by taking over people's dreams, destroying manifestations, destroying people's thought of freedom and wanting to express themselves through dreams. And
Mm-hmm.
then ultimately, I can have control of everything because nothing can be powered. So that's why I've been kind of jumping back and forth. That's my thought process with the third world.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
So, okay. So, half moon,
Hmm.
you said they're members of the D clan.
Yeah. I believe the half moon is the members of the D clan.
Full moon, run me through again. You said the full
The
moon was
full,
just the humans at that time?
so the full moon itself, I believe those are people, um, how can I explain this like a little bit more easier? The full moon is those who are opposed to those of the half moon.
Okay.
So
Okay.
when I think of full moon, I think of like people, for example, like Emu. I think of people like maybe a Kainu. I think of people like along those lines, those who are
Yeah.
opposite of the members of D.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And then you said the fractured moon would be a mix of all of them in a way.
Yeah, it would be a mix of all of it because you're hearing the voice of the fractured moon, and then it follows up with remembers the promised day, and then it also ends with the sun god dances and laughs, leading the world to its end. The sun will
Hmm.
return once more. So to me, that's telling me, hey, the sun needs to rise again for in order for life to continue going forward and create a new future for everything else.
Interesting.
Hmm.
Wow. Wow. Oh my goodness, dude. Oh my, I actually have like a lot of questions, but I'm trying to kind of formulate it. Let me
Yeah.
let me let me zoom out so I can like see this whole thing again. Oh man, where do I even start? Okay, let me ask this
Yeah.
because this is one of the bigger questions in the community.
Hmm.
So you don't think this is a confirmation that Enel's coming back? This is more so just showing us that that race of people, how they came down to get the resources. This isn't showing like Arc Maximus and Nils returning type situation. You're not in line with that.
Okay, so that's the interesting thing. I believe that's showing them, if we're talking in the literal sense that this is potentially the future, I
Mm-hmm.
believe that is for sure Eno. I think Eno, when he comes back with the people or race that belongs on the moon, I believe he's coming back with the understanding of technology.
Right.
Now, this is the biggest thing though, because I know a lot of people, they want Enel back because they think he's going to be some other extra villain or he's going to come back stronger, fight Luffy and all that. I actually, personally, I think when Enel comes back, if he does come back from the moon, I think for certainty, I think he
Okay.
comes back to help Luffy.
To help Luffy. Okay.
Yes. I
Okay.
believe when he comes back, he's going to help essentially. And I'm not saying he's going to come back like, hey, Luffy, I want to help. I'm thinking along the lines of what Crocodile served for Luffy for Marineford and Impel Down. I believe
Mm,
he has his own mission, but by product, if I'm with Luffy, that could help me with my mission. Because I don't think when he comes back, oh hey, I know who's Emu. I need to take Emu down. No, I think Enel comes back with knowledge of ancient kingdoms and knowledge of past advancements, and it's like,
mm.
hey, I want to come down to continue to grab resources so I could go back up to the moon to build my kingdom in the moon. I think the
Okay.
moon is his base. I think that's what he's going to come back down for resources during the final war, do all that, have a lot of engagement, maybe fight, but ultimately he wants to go back to the moon.
It's interesting that you say that. I'm sitting here thinking if it's possible that we get some sort of flashback lore drop from
Yeah.
an Enel who's just coming back from the moon. That'd be actually pretty crazy.
Oh,
But
I
I
think
guess
for
it
sure
makes
he
sense.
is. For sure he will. There's going to be, because Oda's going to have to fit it perfectly about why he's coming back down and what he learned from the people of the moon. So I think that perfectly ties into like, hey, and Nell's gonna spit some lore. We're gonna get understanding, and then we're gonna have more understanding about, hey, why are these people so advanced other than just the mother flame?
Right. Exactly. Oh man. Oh man. Dude. I honestly okay. What's up with the do you have any significance to so okay, so you're in line with thinking that this is Zunisha that Emu is standing on here, right?
Yeah.
That's where you're at.
Yep.
So obviously you got the Noah. I actually had some pushback when I said to somebody that that was the Noah inside of Zunisha. Are you in line with that?
Mm, that's interesting.
Because I you see obviously you got the
Hmm.
angel, you got the two of each like race, the two animals. Obviously,
Yep.
that's what worked with the Noah in the
Yeah.
Bible. Or well, yeah. So, what's your take on that?
My take is, I think this is gonna sound funny. Um, I actually think in regards to the Noah, I think the Noah is going to be filled with animals, but it's also going to be filled with Skypias to tie in the cross between Bible and One Piece. Because as far as we know, people with Skypea, a lot of them have wings, and so I feel like
Mhm.
that's like a perfect blend of like, hey, I got essentially angel-looking people, and I put them on, Noah's Ark with the other animals. I
Mm,
believe that's like a perfect entitlement of like, hey, let's cross these two. And then also it would make a lot of sense for who's, taking at the helm of it.
mhm.
As far as it being inside of Zunisha,
Well, not
I
necessarily in. I guess just the way it's depicted. Because me
Mhm,
personally, this is my theory. I guess I'll
mhm,
explain that. I think that Zunisha could be utilized in the way that the Noah was utilized in the Bible, or not the
mm,
Noah, that Noah utilized the boat in the Bible. We
yeah.
all just get on Zunisha's back, and that is what saves us from the flood because
Mm,
Zunisha just walks over the water. So I always thought it as that is the boat, that's Noah's Ark, but it's inside of Zunisha because that could be what Zunisha could be that for
mm.
these different races
I
and tribes.
I think Zunisha is trying to destroy the tree.
Oh, you think okay?
I
Mm,
think it makes a lot of sense. I think it's Zunisha trying to destroy the tree. I think that's Zunisha's help in this whole thing. I think it's one for transport, two for helping bring along the Sea Kings and Noah's Ark, and then three also to reconnect with the Skypeans because I ultimately believe that when we see parallels of Roger and Luffy, pointing up saying, "Hey, we're gonna go up to the Sky Island," I believe
hmm
Joy Boy was already there and had a relationship with the Skypeans. So
Agreed.
I believe the
Agreed.
Skypeans will be there to reunite with Zunisha, and then we get that lore. And then also, I believe that Zunisha ultimately despises Emu for the death of Joy Boy a little bit
Yes.
more than Emeth. And I
Yeah.
think Zunisha is going to have her own panel of her trying to destroy the tree to help also bring down Marie Joie.
Yeah. Interesting. So you think? I guess my next question. Emu is sitting there. I agree. That's Emu. I agree. That's
Yeah.
Tanisha. So this is tied to the mural, but it's kind of not at the same
Hmm.
time. Do you have a theory on what you think actually happened with Zunisha? Why Zunisha potentially betrayed Joy Boy? And if this has anything to do with it, because it looks like maybe Zunisha was taken under control or something by Emu. That's why Emu's standing on top of Zunisha in the picture.
Actually, so how I think about it is, and this will also go along the lines of um, Emeth. So if you look at the timeline,
Hmm.
right, from the knowledge that we got, that Emeth, when we saw in the last anime episodes in the manga, we saw that Emeth was sitting basically on Egghead Island in storage and was just
Hmm.
there. And before that, we see that, hey, Joy Boy's having a conversation. I'm giving you a knot of my strongest hockey, and et cetera, et cetera. But the one thing that we don't have an understanding of is that throughout that timeline, Emeth potentially attacked the ancient kingdom or Marie Joie during that time.
Right.
So if Joy Boy is not alive, who told Emeth to attack? Who
Right.
told Emeth to do anything in general?
Right.
So I believe those two things tie up to each other because I also believe that Emu possesses the ability to converse with Zunisha and Emeth. And I also believe that Emu, in some sort of way, either through force, through power, or through just manipulation, tricked Zunisha into, hey, if you do this, 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 and this,
Hmm.
maybe I could bring back Joy Boy. Or hey, I know
Mm.
where Joy Boy is. Or hey, I know what happened to Joy Boy. Hey, I'm on your side. And maybe
Hmm.
that led down to that path of like, hey, like, Zunisha had to betray Joy Boy for some reason. And
Mm.
I'm saying this in total certainty that if Zunisha had full acknowledgement of what happened completely and what's happening, Zunisha would have never betrayed Joy Boy. I know
Right.
that for 100% certainty. So by that logic that I'm using, Zunisha had to be either tricked or by taken by force and essentially became a slave for Emu. And so I believe that's the reason why we see Emu on top of Zunisha.
Mm. was good, man. This is wow. This was good. This was good. All right, man. Well, good talk. I appreciate you. A lot of good information drops. Guys, don't forget to like the video while you're here. Drop a subscribe here on the channel as well if you haven't already. And hit the notification bell so you get notified for all future updates. And we'll see you guys in the next episode.